Gian joined them as they left their apartments. Jimin tells Gian where his apartment is as his companion indicates to the one he lives in, pointing towards a colossal building in front of him. After that, they both turn to Gian and Jimin expresses his gratitude to him for saving their lives and bringing them back home without incident. He opens his eyes, nevertheless, after a little period during which he receives no answer. Gian stands yawning in front of him and asks if he's going to go inside, saying that he's tired, which makes him think that Gian plans to accompany him to his house. Gian changes his attire and trims his long hair after spending some time inside the house, completely changing how he looks. Jimin then comments on how beautiful his new appearance is and expresses surprise that he trimmed his hair when he emerges after that. He recalls how, in the past, he had valued each and every hair, for as a side consequence of his powers, he had been losing hair constantly. He is happy when he looks away at that same moment. He finds a little, mosquito-like catastrophe and wonders why it is in his home. Jimin is astounded by his skill as he is, believing that even experts wouldn't be able to kill it, as he uses his hand to effortlessly smash it without turning around to it. However, Gian becomes agitated when such minute disasters keep happening to him, and Jimin speculates that he might be releasing a perfume that attracts disasters. Gian, on the other hand, thinks that there is something about this house that is drawing them, so he steps back to search for it. He points to a number of evil artifacts that are arranged on one of the racks and claims that these are to blame for the ongoing disasters. Jimin replies that he obtained those things straight from the Gemini saint. Jimin holds up one of the sculptures in his hand and says, "These are blessed by the saint," when suddenly Gian breaks it. Jimin lays on the ground, unable to comprehend that such a priceless statue has been damaged, as Gian stands and says it is horrible. Then Gian selects a mask from among those things and queries Jimin as to whether it is the artifact that keeps track of its user. Jimin then keeps staring at him in shock as he walks over to the rack and starts inspecting each item of equipment before discarding it. Gian discovers after examining all of those items that these saints have not only taken his cash, but are also exploiting others by selling them evil artifacts. Gian orders him to throw away all of those. Feeling furious at the very concept, a person standing outside of the entrance hears their words coming from within during this time. The individual enters the house feeling astonished, as Gian is occupied with destroying the divine artifacts one by one, ignoring Jimin's protests. Gian questions him while he examines him, and Jimin is pleased to see him. Gian stops acting out after the individual answers his question by admitting that he is the owner of this house. In the meantime, Yang Wei learns at home that his subordinates in Korea have mysteriously vanished, which has caused their Korean branch to be in a panic right now. Yang Wei is left wondering who would have done it, given the fact that those beings were the direct offspring of divine beings, whom no awakened person would ever dare to pursue. Yang Wei assigns his secretary the responsibility of contacting the other saints to see if they have discovered any suggestions in light of this. Yang Wei says that the Sagittarius saint is currently in England and they need not worry about him, to which the secretary agrees and informs Yang Wei that he is unavailable as per usual. The secretary, however, informs us that Hugo left right away after arriving in England. Yang Wei is surprised to learn that the person's destination is Korea. When he inquires about where he went, Hugo was Jian's closest friend, so Yang Wei wonders if the rumors of Jian's survival are to blame for Hugo's behavior. He begins to wonder if Jian has really returned alive as a result of this. Yang Wei, who is now overcome with worry and annoyance, snatches a candle stand and hurls it at the secretary, ordering him to look into the situation carefully. When the client requests more information, the secretary explains that the site where the underlings vanished is also where a Gemini disciple who was unconscious was found. The disciple was reportedly found laying on the streets following an altercation with an attractive man. Yang Wei claims that the person couldn't be Gian when he hears the adjective handsome, since he thinks Jian's face was seriously harmed. Nevertheless, given the reports of Jian's return, he is still apprehensive about the current situation. Yang Wei is concerned that his authority may be undermined if this keeps happening, as the members of the divine family have mysteriously disappeared and were unable to defeat the Spider Queen. As a result, he tells his assistant to get a private aircraft ready and says he will fly there himself to look into the matter. After making this statement, he puts on his cloak and instantly leaves to perform a quick investigation. The person who argued with Gian is currently being treated for a serious condition on a ventilator in a Korean hospital with a Gemini affiliation. A senior citizen who is standing next to him has a wave of rage and wonders who had the gall to hurt his grandchild. The elderly man turns to someone nearby in frustration, and that person comforts him and tells him not to be concerned about what happened. The person going by the name Min Sungun addresses the elderly man as chairman and claims that the celestial Gemini cadre sent him specifically for this reason. The owner of Jimin's home, Sunjae, confirms what Jimin informed him about Gian, saying they had met at the Demon Tower and that he overcame all the disasters by himself. Sunjae disagrees and is angry with Gian for smashing all of their divine artifacts, as Gian continues to examine them and declares them to be phonies. Sunjae is taken aback when Gian says that he doesn't need to be a member of a divine cadre. When he is asked which one he belongs to, when Eunji presses Gian further about the deity he follows, Gian admits that he doesn't actually follow the 12 saints, but rather himself. Sunjae is once again taken aback when Gian answers a question concerning his awakened class, revealing that he is a member of the production class. When Sunjae finally asks Gian for his name, Gian replies, Lee Gian. This causes Sunjae to explode in rage and release flames of mana from his entire body. Sunjae becomes furious and demands to know how Gian dared to pose as Lee Gian, accusing him of smashing their sacred artifacts, entering their home without permission, and impersonating Lee Gian. Jimin becomes alarmed as he notices the powerful mana flames coming from Sunjae's body and reminds him that they are still in their home. Just thereafter, Gian learns that the disciple of Gemini's mana is bursting, which he finds interesting and declares he will use to set his house on fire. Gian just then activates his recently learned ability, the Gaze of the Divine, and checks Sunjae's data, understanding that he is a potent Gemini disciple who belongs to the Punisher category. Gian calls Sunjae a genius for being able to use a powerful summon at such a young age. After witnessing all of this, Jimin orders Gian to go, claiming that Sunjae is a serious Lee Gian enthusiast and an A-ranked Gemini disciple. As his powers start to grow, Sunjae, who is enraged, orders Jimin to leave the house if he doesn't want to perish in the meantime. He is astonished when Gian suddenly stops him from playing with fire in that manner by reaching behind him. Gian immediately aims his energies at Sunjae, bringing him to the ground. Gian queries whether Sunjae intends to set the entire structure on fire while in a good mood. After such a tremendous strike, Jimin wonders if Sunjae is even still alive. Gian reassures him that he is, though, as he stands shaking in amazement. Jimin questions whether it is indeed the case as he observes Sunjae lying unconscious on the floor, bloodied and injured. Gian yawns and claims he is going to sleep and will be waking up in the morning, as Jimin reaches for Sunjae and asks him to wake up. The moment he unlocks the door and steps inside, he is met by a room filled with several sculptures of himself that are lying on the table. He wonders what those are in shock. Jimin replies that Sunjae is a devotee of Lee Gian, to which Sunjae replies that he cherishes his possessions more than his life and prevents him from entering the chamber. Gian approaches them and begins to chop off their heads despite their protests, telling them that he feels uneasy because of how he used to look. Sunjae notices this and begins to yell, begging him to stop and calling him insane. However, Gian insists that he is the genuine Lee Gian and not a lunatic. Sunjae breaks down in tears as a result of feeling helpless. Hugo watches the news the next day about the fight between two Gemini disciples and the mysterious person who took away all of their possessions. After humiliating them, as he is sitting at a coffee shop, Hugo acknowledges that it is Gian upon hearing that and sighs, wondering why he is acting in such a manner. Just thereafter, a waitress approaches him to take his order, but Hugo swiftly identifies her as Yang Wei, which surprises him. Yang Wei informs Hugo, with a wicked smirk on his face, that he hasn't been able to reach him in a long time. He places his hand on Hugo's shoulder and adds that Hugo must have thought of Gian, because he is also in Korea, urging him to share all he knows. Hugo becomes outraged in response, declaring that this is why he despises Yang Wei, who has a tendency to seize other people's bodies. Yang Wei abruptly exits the waitress's body, leaving her perplexed as to what she was doing a short time earlier. Hugo is angered by Yang Wei's cruel methods and believes he must find Gian before anybody else. Meanwhile, when food shopping in the Buchi and Gyeonggi market, Jimin asks Sunjae whether that guy is indeed Lee Gian, but Sunjae denies it, claiming that he looks entirely different. He claims that Gian is a hero who protects mankind and cannot be a thug like that individual. Sunjae refuses. Jimin is reminded of the fact that his father is the Sagittarius Saint Hugo, when Sunjae claims that it is something his father told him, demonstrating his certainty. Sunjae advises that they change the subject by paying for their purchases at the counter. But just then, they hear a thief yell from behind them. They abruptly collide with someone who quickly pulls out their wallets and sprints ahead as they turn to look. look. Due to their speed, Jimin immediately identifies them as Scorpio disciples, and Sunjae is incensed that they are abusing their powers to steal. They are concerned that if the thief keeps robbing at this pace, all the goods and wallets in the store will be gone. The burglar steals while boasting that not even a saint will be able to keep up with his pace. After some time, he makes the decision that enough is enough and makes arrangements to move on to the next place. Before he can, however, Gian grabs him and gives him a hard blow to the abdomen, causing him to cry in pain and go blank. Jimin is surprised to see him and inquires as to his purpose. He responds that he neglected to inform them to bring some chicken. Another Gemini disciple comes over while Gian is speaking, compliments him on his skills and remarks that it is difficult to capture Scorpio followers, but advises him to notify the police the next time. Gian is curious about him after seeing him and what he wants. Both of them experience a sudden sensation, look away, and discover everyone at the mart standing motionless as the structure begins to shake erratically. The robber believes it to be an earthquake, deems it lucky, and intends to flee amid the commotion. However, as he begins to move further, the floor shatters, and a massive centipede bursts through, startling him. The burglar decides to flee before being apprehended because he questions why such a catastrophe would exist in the green zone. He leaps over the creature and resumes running, confident that not even that disaster will be able to catch up to his swiftness. However, just as he is ready to flee, the monster's face materializes in front of him and rips him to pieces, killing him instantly. The onlookers look at it in horror as a strange-looking monster with a human face suddenly arises atop the monster's head. At that point, it is revealed that the Spider Queen and other deadly high-ranking tragedies have arrived in the mart, advising the populace to leave the area right once. When people hear it, they start frantically rushing in the direction of the exit, pursued by an endless influx of monsters that turn the region into a red zone. A little youngster stands close to the monster, sobbing helplessly, while people flee in all directions for their lives. Gian arrives from behind and delivers a single punch to the monster as it approaches, with the intention of killing the youngster. The youngster watches this in shock as Gian turns to him and warns him to pay attention to where he is going, making the youngster shudder in terror. Gian raises his hand to the youngster as he approaches and inquires about their well-being, but much to his amazement, the kid screams and rushes off. When he sees that, he is angry but also happy that the child was uninjured. He then turns to face the demonic being he just killed and wonders why there are more disasters in the mart than there are people. He can't think of a cause, but as the dangerous monsters approach, he realizes that it has been a while since he warmed up. Yang Wei, who is in a vehicle, hears that a disaster has invaded a mart. Yang Wei is astonished to learn that the calamity is the Spider Queen. This is awful news for him, and Yang Wei worries if it somehow escaped, given that they failed to subdue it the last time and only just managed to shut it. He believes it would be challenging for him to handle a red-level catastrophe alone. He remembers that as the disasters started to occur, people grouped them into 6 categories, with blue denoting purity, green denoting safety, and yellow denoting warning. The ones on the orange level were seen as dangerous, the ones on the red level as the monarchs, and the most perilous, the ones on the black level, as the monsters signifying the annihilation of humanity. Yang Wei speculates that if a red-level Spider Queen has been detected, the mart may already have turned into a red zone as a result of this knowledge. When his driver inquires about what they should do with the mart at that precise moment, he replies that they ought to dispose of it after a little pause. Yang Wei gives him the directive to claim that everyone in the mart is dead and send disciples there to cover up the entire structure, since he believes that nobody should know about their defeat. The S-rank Gemini disciple is fighting the mart's continuous parade of monsters as they appear there. He suddenly releases a potent frozen prison, freezing all the beasts in his path. He believes that the frozen monsters cannot look down at a disciple of his status. The monsters' frozen bodies start to develop fractures all of a sudden, which causes the ice to break and let the monsters out again. The individual is horrified when they see this and realize how quickly the powerful disasters were able to break the ice magic. Gian suddenly appears in front of him, clutching a large number of tin cans, and commands him to go. When he sees him, he is puzzled as to how he passed him without his knowledge. Gian suddenly grabs a tin can and explains that the monsters started devouring people when they ran out of other things to eat. After saying that, he launches the tin can in their direction with enough force to knock out every creature that was coming their way before it landed close to the enormous centipede. Gian is furious as the centipede screams in return with a ferocious murderous purpose in its eyes. As soon as it happens, he rises up quickly and slashes the creature in pieces with a knife. As they observe this, Sunjae and Jimin are overcome with astonishment, and Gian starts to get notifications about getting more materials and his developing zodiac experience. He stares at his palm, which starts to gleam, and wonders what new resources he has gained. He plans to practice his new skill later. Gian is happy with how well he moved despite suffering a 50% physical ability penalty, and he anticipates being stronger than when he was proactive. The S-rank ice magic user is left speechless as Gian dispatches the creatures with ease, despite them scarcely being impacted by his power. He observes Gian handing Sunjae the knife he used to slay the monster, while claiming to have discovered it at the residence. The disciple worries where a person like that appeared from as he studies him. He suddenly has an insight and screams out to Gian, telling him that he is the culprit who attacked their followers, which surprises Gian. He then hits the individual so hard that he is knocked to the ground, while recalling the two Gemini disciples he argued with outside the restaurant. The person replies that it was simple for him to know, because the attire and insignia he carries belong to their student. They say that the badges are divine artifacts, exclusively awarded to S-rank Gemini devotees. He believes that Gian's strength must also be a result of the badge. Gian pulls the emblem from his clothing, wonders why it was there, and smashes it with just one finger. He is stunned by this, but Gian just stands there, explaining that these artifacts are only decorations that were traced by the saint, since she has remained the same during the 20 years. Gian turns around and sees the fearsome Spider Queen when suddenly another enormous creature arrives behind them, shocking Jimin. Gian rushes in its direction at a high rate of speed, as the Gemini disciple stood startled after seeing the Spider Queen. He calls out to the monster, then punches it hard while holding it, sending it tumbling to the ground. The citizens, along with Sunjae and Jimin, look at him in disbelief, but the Gemini disciple thinks it's crazy. He thinks it incredible that Gian attacked the powerful Spider Queen without using any divine artifacts and brought it to the ground. Sunjae and the other Gemini disciples immediately recognize this voice as belonging to their heavenly cadre leader. When someone connects to all of the Gemini disciples in the market at that same moment, the commander orders them to evacuate the building as soon as they reply to him, warning them that the followers of Aries will bury it entirely. The captain says that Yang Wei is heading there personally, and that there is nothing they can do to stop him, as a red ray of light starts to blanket the market. He claims that even Aries was unable to subdue the Spider Queen that suddenly arrived there. That is why they are so determined to bury the entire structure in order to conceal the truth. Sunjae is astonished when the captain orders the other disciple to use his teleportation ability to escape the market with him. After all, they simply desire to protect their own people. The captain asks whether there is an issue with doing so, and he considers it as he stares forward towards the citizens, the monstrous beings, and Gian, who is battling them. But after giving it some thought, he smiles and says that there is absolutely no issue. Sunjae protests against his choice, claiming that they are currently in disarray, after realizing that he has consented to transport both of them, leaving the other individuals behind. Sunjae asks whether he wants everyone present to be buried alive, and the individual replies that he is aware of the situation, while continuing to stand with his back to him. Sunjae is perplexed when he says that it would not be beneficial for them to inform the populace that the Spider Queen emerged in the center of the city. He says that the citizenry would challenge the Celestial Core in reaction, which will undermine their commitment and reduce the power of the divine creatures. He calls for Sunjae, saying that he can still transport two people at once, and that he has been commanded to save him. He also promises to transfer Sunjae out on his own. Sunjae asserts that there are several other individuals who were unable to go, but he does not want to leave Jimin behind. Frustrated by his hesitation, the person wonders why he is bothering him in such a dire circumstances, and declares that he has no intention of being buried alive, because he delayed because of idiots like them. He begins the teleportation spell as a result, grins, and tells Sunjae not to bother about the burdens, because he can't defy their captain's instructions to. He then abruptly bestows the teleportation spell on Sunjae, shocking and infuriating him. The individual chuckles as they approach him and inquire about Sunjae's intentions to engage in combat. He explains that both of them are at entirely different skill levels, and tells Sunjae to quit feeling bad and start acting wisely. Gian was fighting a huge monster when it suddenly fell onto him, sending him flying to the ground and trapping him beneath the beast. Then Gian comes up to Sunjae and Jimin, and asks them why they're still there and tells them to go right now, since it's dangerous. Sunjae responds that the escape is blocked by disasters, so they must either utilize teleportation or battle the calamities to survive. They further report that there are several injured persons and that the followers of Ares are obstructing their path out of the structure. Gian thinks the situation is problematic after hearing this. The individual complains bitterly about being stomped by Gian after exiting. Gian turns to him and claims that it was he who left the others and fled on his own. In response, he pulls out his phone and activates the teleportation spell. But when he attempts to do so, the monster is made to fling something resembling a net at him by the Spider Queen, entangling and stunning him. He is eventually drawn into the monster's mouth, where he dies after being eaten. Sunjae and Jimin are horrified by what they see, and Gian is looking intently at this. Gian calls out to them, telling them to go take care of the wounded, so they may leave right away. While he takes care of the monsters, he promises that he will soon join them. Yang Wei arrives at the scene as well, and when he inquires about the situation with his secretary, the latter responds that the whole structure has been shut down. However, he feels that, considering that it began prior to his arrival, the process is moving quite slowly. The disciples who are preventing it started to feel as though something is interfering with the correct operation of their seal. Everyone is startled as an abruptly brilliant light appears from inside the structure. Then, out of nowhere, a huge snake appears, leaving everyone speechless and paralyzed in shock. Soon after, the trapped citizens begin to emerge from the building and approach the disciples, telling them that all the disasters have been put an end to, and pleading for assistance on behalf of the survivors. Upon learning of this, Yang Wei is astounded and believes it to be impossible, believing that even he is incapable of killing the spiders. His followers are instructed to wait outside while he checks it personally. As soon as that happens, he abruptly springs to his feet and uses a shortcut to quickly enter the building. He finds the powerful creature lying dead in front of him when he gets there, which surprises him. He is intrigued by the sight and wonders who the person was who managed to slay such a beast. He notices recent combat remnants in the area and deduces that an internal event must have occurred, leading him to question if the Spider Queen was actually chased. This makes him keep his head high, thinking that the problem is getting bigger and bigger, which, together with other things that demand his attention, makes him upset. He suddenly has an odd feeling and rushes to the window. He wonders why he is there as he casts a glance down the street at a person and observes Hugo standing with the rescue crew in front of the structure. Given that it makes sense if he believes that way, this makes him question if Hugo is the one who carried out all of that. Gian shouts out to him behind his back while he is still contemplating this, saying that they haven't seen each other in a while, and questioning why he is wearing such a dejected attitude. Yang Wei is horrified to her core when she realizes the voice is Li Jian's.